Deputy Prime Minister Heng Keat has reiterated that the Singapore economy is not at the stage where extraordinary measures are needed, even as the country narrowly avoided a technical recession in the third quarter. But he did announce that the government is looking at more extensive consultations with business leaders in the coming months as it maps out measures to weather the storm.
He was speaking at the end of his China visit. Olivia Xiong with this report from Beijing.
As the China-US trade war continues, Singapore has not been spared from the global economic fallout. Earlier this week, the Monetary Authority of Singapore announced that the Singapore dollar would adopt a slightly slower rate of appreciation. Deputy Prime Minister Heng Keat says the government has been keeping a close eye on the economic situation.
Budget 2020 is coming up in a few months' time, and we'll continue to monitor the state of the global economy. And there are many sectors in our economy that are still growing. So you see while overall there's weakness, you see fairly uneven performances across the different areas. But we are not at a stage where we need to mount extraordinary measure. So what we need to continue to focus on is on structural policies.
The country's industry transformation maps are an important part of this, and Mr. Heng said that Singapore's early implementation has given it a head start. That's because people now have a better understanding of the opportunities that technological advances bring. In the coming months, Mr. Heng said the government intends to get more businesses involved in the discussion and to work together as measures to address the economic headwinds are prepared. Now, Mr. Heng was speaking to Singapore media at the end of a 4-day visit to China, which took him to Chongqing, Tianjin and Beijing. On Thursday, Mr. Heng met Chinese Vice Premier Liu He, who has been China's lead negotiator in ongoing trade talks with the U.S. Mr. Heng said that Mr. Liu shared Singapore's view that the China-US trade conflict is bad for every country and an early resolution would benefit everyone. But he added it is not realistic to expect all issues to be resolved in just a few meetings. China has said it hopes to reach a phased agreement with the US as soon as possible.
Being able to agree on a number of key areas will be important progress, and in turn that will provide for greater confidence to investors, not just in the US and China, but all around the world. And I think the restoration of global confidence is important for investors. It's important for us to tackle these longer-term challenges, and important for us to harness the use of better technology in the coming years.
Mr. Heng was also asked about the relationship between Chinese leaders and Singapore's fourth-generation lineup. A large number of office holders had accompanied him on this trip.
The various members of the 4G leadership have been involved in various bilateral councils and business councils for a number of years now. Whether they started off when they were SMSs or MOSs, and now as they move out as ministers, they have been much more deeply involved. So you take, for example, Minister Desmond Lee. He has been to, yesterday was my first visit to Tianjin, but it was his third visit. And similarly with all the other ministers, they all have been involved in various ways.
To continue to be effective in engaging China, Mr. Heng said that Singapore must stay relevant and see how it can play a role at various stages of the country's development. Olivia Xiong, CNA, Beijing.